Hi everybody, this is Oksana and today we're going to make this neat little pendant. It uses round wire as well as square wire together. So these wires that you can see up here kind of crisscrossing each other, those are round wires that we have. And then the other ones in the back and the bale, those are square. So if you want to see how I made this pendant, just keep watching. For my wire, I'm going to be using 20 gauge copper and I'm going to be using both round and square wires. Dead soft from riogrande.com, and they're going to be the same length. I'm going to do 2 of each wire, so 2 round, 2 square for a total of 4 wires, and they are 9 inches long. And then for my stone, you can do either a teardrop with the point down and the rounded part up, or you can do an oval. Mine is an oval. It's a chrysoprase, I believe, and it's about a little bit less than 1.25 inches, probably like 34 millimeters tall, maybe 33 millimeters tall. The other wire that I'm going to be using is this half round wire. It's 24 gauge, and I'm just going to be keeping it on the spool and grabbing the end of it. It's also dead soft copper. And what I want to do with my 4 wires is I want to have the 2 round wires together and the 2 square wires together, because the 2 round wires, I actually want them to be in the front of my pendant eventually when we start putting the stone in. But as of right now, just line them all up together and have the 2 round wires and then 2 square wires. So here's how that looks. They're all lined up together, and just grab them in the middle, because the first thing that we want to do is just connect them all by wrapping our half round wire around them. So I'm just grabbing the tail end of my wire and I'm wrapping it just around and around. The round wires tend to slide around more than the square. The square ones usually just kind of stack nicely together, but the round ones don't always. So you can see it's kind of like forming a bump. So I'm just going to press on it with my pliers like this, and that kind of fixes the alignment of the wire. So I'm just going to finish off this little wire end here, leave it facing me. I'll trim it off later when I trim the other end, and I'm going to keep going just a little longer. This is probably adequate, but I like to just go for a little longer because I like the look. But basically this is just to keep the wires together. So now that I'm working on this end that's still connected to the spool, I'm just guiding the wire with my hand and I'm twisting this little bundle of wires. You can only go around and around when it's been cut. When it's still connected to the spool, you have to go with this twisting method. So now I'm going to cut my wire ends, just make sure that everything is here on the same side. And now I'm just going to grab my pliers and press down on those wire ends, and then just press down across the whole bit here, just like this. So here's what that looks like. And now what we want to do is these wire ends, they're going to be touching the stone, and you have the 2 square wires and the 2 round wires. So if yours is backwards like this and you have the square wires in the front and then the round wires behind them, just turn it so that the round wires are here in the front. So this wire and this wire, these 2 wires are round, and then the ones in the back are square, and that's what we want. So then we're just gonna give it a little gentle curve here on the bottom. So then we're just gonna sit the stone in that little curve, I would just put this down on a table. I'm just doing this in the air for you guys to see, but normally you'd want to place this down on a flat surface. And I am just bending the wires around my stone like this, and then here at the top I'm just going to start to put little curves in them, trying to keep them all lined up together. They do kind of want to crisscross a little bit, so you kind of have to work on keeping the wires together and not crisscrossed, and then just bringing them together. And as I'm bringing them together, I'm just looking to make sure that it's centered and then they're not like on one side, like tilted to one side. And now I'm just putting a bend by just kind of going like this back and forth, bending back and forth, making sure they're still all lined up nicely like this, 2 square, 2 round. And then if I take my stone out, you can just double check that it still looks symmetrical, and this little bend is just kind of straight and not too much to one side. And now we're just going to take the round wires and we're just going to open them up, oops, like this, and we're going to focus on the square wires. We're going to connect those square wires together, these 2 square wires, and the 2 round wires are not going to be a part of this bale. So I'm just going to take my half round wire and I'm just going to wrap it around like this, and just a few times around all of these, just the square wires, and then I'm going to put it through the center here. Once I put it through the center, I'm just going to pull tight on that, and then I'll trim it off after, just like that. You can just kind of like press on this whole thing if you want. And now we're going to take these 2, just the very first 2 wires, and just kind of bend them forward and then bend the other 2 back, and that gives us that space to get in there with our half round wire, and just to keep wrapping around to form our bale. I like to make my bale just a little bit less than an inch, maybe like 3/4 of an inch. That's a good size for me, but you can adjust as needed. So I'm just guiding the wire with this hand, and then I'm twisting the whole piece with the other hand, just like this. And that ensures that the half round wire lays down nicely. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit. So then when you're done, you're just going to trim it so that the wire end is here, like on the top, if you want to think about it that way, or in the back. And then this other wire here, we're just going to trim that really short. And now with our pliers, we're just going to press down on our bale. We're going to press this wire end down, and we're just going to go over the entire bale here. Just like that. And now we're going to work on these round wires, and the first thing I want to do is just kind of take that bend out of it. There's a little bend in them, as you can see from when we bent them around the oval stone. So just very gently press down on them, and carefully. You don't want to mark them up too much with your pliers, but you just want to kind of straighten them out, and you want them to just follow along this shape. One thing we can do is maybe just kind of bring them to the front here and kind of crisscross them, and that almost like forces them into that shape. And what we're going to do now is grab ourselves a little piece of half round wire, maybe around 4 inches or so, and we are going to connect the round and the square wires up here in the top So you want them to line up together like this, and you don't want any part of them to crisscross. So I'm just gonna wrap a few times to get started. I'm gonna press on that, make sure that that's all going nicely, they're not crisscrossing. And then I'm gonna continue to wrap this little wire end. I'm just gonna press it in here on the inside. So I have 3 little wraps, and then here's a 4th wrap. Let me just move this up a little bit, and a 5th wrap, and that should be adequate. So 5 little wraps. Let me just trim this one and press this wire end on the inside, and you want them to be up against each other, no gaps, just like this, the 2 round wires here in the front, and then just kind of push this towards the top like that. And now we just have to do the same thing on the other side. So 5 wraps, just like we did over there. So I like to just kind of start in the middle, and that way I have both ends to work with. You can use your pliers to help you grab the little wire ends, or your fingers, whatever's easier. Once they get too short, it's hard to do with fingers. So I'm just going to press on this to make sure it's going nicely. I'm going to go ahead and trim this little bit up here that I've wrapped, and then press that little wire end in there, push this up. So this is 4, so I just need 1 more, so this is going to be my 5th little wrap here. And I'm just going to trim and press that little wire end, push it in there, press it down, kind of push this up, and here's what we have. The next thing I'm going to do is these backmost wires. I'm just going to take them, being careful to grab the backmost wires only, and putting a bend in them like this. This will prevent the stone from being able to pop out the back. Alright, so I did that. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my stone, and I'm just going to put it in to the frame. So I have to pop it in from the front. Ooh, it's having a hard time getting in there. Maybe I should have put it in from the back before I locked the back in. There we go. I got it in. So now we just have to lock the front of the stone. So to do that, I'm going to do basically the same thing, where I take the frontmost wire, I'm sliding down my pliers all the way down to the wrap, and then I'm just putting a little bend in it like this. So that'll trap the front of my stone. And then same thing on the other side, just try to slide all the way down, put a little bend in it, just like that. If you think one bend is more than the other, you can try to like adjust it all. There we go. That looks good. Now my stone is locked in. And what I'm going to do now is I want to try to get these round wires out of the way, because it's kind of hard to make the bale with these sticking up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these ones here because they happen to be on the front. If your other ones are in the front, just start with those and just make a little curve like this, And then once you have that curve going, go ahead and do that with the other side. All right, and curve the other side a little more so it's almost like pointing down. And now take this side that's underneath. See how it's going underneath? Now we want to put it on top like this. And I like to just hold it up here to try and keep it the same height as the other one, because if you just start pulling it down, see how it starts becoming lower than the other one? So I'm trying to keep it the same height. I'm also just trying to keep the two wires together nicely. So I'm bending that one, and then I'm bending this one, and by doing just a little tiny bit at a time on each side, we can get it nice and symmetrical. And like if this side needs to be a little higher, I can kind of get in there and almost like see how I push that up a little bit higher. Then you can kind of work on it until you are happy with the way that it looks. And now you can just bend them to the back. Make sure they are like not right above the stone, but when they move to the back here, make sure they're here in this like little space, because we're going to tuck them away. And if yours are like down here, you can't tuck them into the stone, so you need them to be like right above that edge. Oops, sorry, I hit my camera. Right above that edge of the stone. So here's what that looks like from the front, just basically that little edge where it ends. And now we can trim them, but leave ourselves a wire end so that we can kind of curve that in there and tuck it away. So I'm going to take that, both of them. You can do one at a time or just both together, whatever's easier. And just tucking them in there and pressing down on those wires. See that? And that's how we're gonna make that connection and get rid of our wire ends. And now the same thing on the other side with these other wires here. And just like that, tuck them in there and press down on them. And it still looks good from the front. All right, so now we're gonna do these backmost wires. What I'm gonna do is just grab them pretty close, just tiny little gap here, and I'm bending them upwards first, and then I'm bending them down. This is kind of my little trick to get them pushed up right up against here. And now I'm just gonna trim them, being careful to trim only those wires and not any of the other wires, because they're really close up against the other wires. You just have to be careful where your wire cutters are. You don't accidentally cut anything else there. So I'm just gonna press down on these, and that's it. They're just kind of finished off, tucked away. There's my little wire end of my half round wire in there. I'm just gonna fix it. It's like a little visible. There we go. Pressed it down. Can't see it now. So now we're just gonna do our bail. We're gonna take this wire, we're gonna bend it all the way around and put the little wire ends through this gap here, just like that. Kind of push it down in there. Now we're gonna take each wire and put it on its respective sides. So we have our right wire and our left wire, and we're just gonna try to make them look symmetrical. I'm just gonna press down on them so I can kind of see where it's gonna end up, because once you press down on it, it kind of moves a tiny bit. Yeah, that looks good. Just trying to get them to be equal. And that's it. Now we just trim and tuck them away, and that is our last step. So leave yourself a little wire end on each side. And now we're just gonna take those little wire ends, turn them inwards like this, and press down on them to tuck them in and tuck them away, so that we hide our wire ends and they are not sticking up. So there's my wire end. You can kind of see it a little bit. And I pushed it in there. Now I'm just gonna adjust my bale, make sure it's good, hasn't gotten moved around too much. I'm just gonna adjust this a little bit, just kind of straighten it. And that's it. Here is my finished pendant with round and square wires. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.